Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World. And in this video, I'm going to go over my first impression on 002 and Alice. And I'm also going to talk about whether you should pull for this collab or not based on the amount of resources you have. And yeah, this is more or less the content on this video. I decided to include also the part on whether you should pull or not because I'm not sure I will be releasing the character review videos for all 4 units before I go on holiday. I will be going on holiday from December 11 to December 18. So when I'm back, the banners will be gone. And that's the whole reason why I decided to add this part in this video. And yeah, I will start by talking about the 2 new units, and then I will go over the whether you should pull or not in general on this collab. And for 002, this guy is a ranged unit, but I wouldn't rely too much on his DPS. He's not going to compete with an SSR Plus, obviously. So he's mainly there for his crowd control capabilities, his buffing capability, and that's pretty much it. He is already quite good at 3 red because he can already provide an 80% crit damage to all your allies in the front line. And as long as this guy is alive, this buff will stand. As soon as he dies, you lose it. It is the same as, for example, Xyexia. And the 80% crit damage is not a bad buff, especially if you're using a unit like Egene, which has guaranteed crits with Revolution 4, I believe, or a unit like White, where you kind of want to go for slot 5 crit rate anyway, so it will have high crit rate and stuff like that. It works better with a unit that deals physical damage if you have his Revolution 5. Yes, I believe so. So if you have his Revolution 5, he's also going to shred the enemy physical resistance, but it's not that mandatory. He has some good crowd control with a okay AoE. So yeah, overall, this unit is not bad. I will say that the fact that they paired him with Alice and they put them together in the same banner is a bit well, not really that great because they don't really work that well together. It's true that you want to crit with Alice so that you can do the max HP damage, so she can kind of use the 80% crit damage. But for that, you have to place Alice in the front line, which could be fine since she has a lot of like conceal and stuff, but still probably a bit too risky. Will depend a lot on the team fight. So they don't really synergize too much. They are okay-ish, but not really the best pair. So yeah, this is more or less my first impression on this guy. Now I would say we can just go over the skills, exclusive equipment and revolution mainly. So for the passive, we have what I just mentioned, the increase to the crit damage of all allies in the front row by 40%, and this is increased to 80% with this achievement, but we're going to read that later. And then he has a jolt and a self buff to his accuracy every third basic attack. That's okay. I mean, you're unlikely to miss the enemies nowadays with all the accuracy we have. The only issues are, well, the bull, because he gets 160% of ren evasion and Zahard, and he can definitely deal with both of them with the 60% accuracy increase that he gets from this passive. Nothing insane, but it's okay. It's a good passive. Then we have the first active skill, which is CQB, and is going to teleport to an enemy, kick them back to the end of the enemy team, and that's basically all it does. It deals a little bit of damage, and whenever this guy is hit by a close range attack, then the cooldown of this skill is going to reset. It's just a sort of self-defense. If an enemy comes to your backline and is going to attack 002, then he will knock them back to the enemy team if he survives. But I would say that since you're not focusing on damage on this guy, just go for resistances and it should be fine if you're not at too crazy high deficit. Then with Revolution 4, instead of only giving a status effect immunity, you will also get invincibility. This is something that I was kind of like talking about in one of my previous videos when we were at this first kit, and I was like, okay, it's trash that you dash in the middle of the enemy team. Uh, so I hope they give some sort of invincibility. They did. Is a bit poor for a Revolution 4. They could have added it in a exotic level, but whatever, it's fine. Then we have Tactical Reload. This skill is a bit poor as well. It gets a bit buffed by the exotic but it's nothing crazy. This guy is going to get 120% attack, and all these skills are going to be crit hits for 10 seconds. I mean, not too important. You're not relying on his damage anyway, I believe. And I didn't see a lot of damage coming out from him, especially not compared to Aegean. I'm sure there could be scenarios where you can actually make him do something. And if your deficit is not high, it can be somewhat relied upon, but it's not really that great of a buff, that important. But it's okay. For the special move, we have an AoE attack that also leaves behind the burning zone for 5 seconds, up to 9 with the Exudia Achievement. I think it gets increased by 4 seconds. And every second you will deal additional damage and jolt enemies in an AoE, which is pretty good. And Revolution 5 is going to decrease the physical resistance of enemies inside the burning zone by 40%. This is pretty good, is a nice debuff so that it doesn't only have the 80% crit damage increase. Overall, not bad, pretty solid, nice CC, nice uh, buffing capabilities, but is not like an insane support. It will work really well with the Gene and not so much with the rest of the red units that we have. It will work well also with Jinsung if we really want to talk about that guy, but I don't know if you can squeeze 002 in one of Jinsung's teams. But that's more or less it. We can quickly go over the Exusia Achievement as well. It's getting crit damage increase. Not really a fan of that, but it's okay. Then he has the upgrade to Tactical Reload, increasing his attack speed by 40, other than the guaranteed crits on skills and the 120% attack that we just read. Level 2 is going to add a movement speed decrease for the enemies in the burning zone. Is that useful? Not necessarily. I don't particularly care about this kind of debuff. Level 3 is what I mentioned before, from 5 seconds to a 9-second burning zone. Pretty good. And then the level 4 is one of the first things I mentioned, so the additional 40% crit damage of allies in the front row, taking it from 40 to 80. And that's more or less there is to this guy. In terms of ignition weapons, I don't really think there is a best solution. You can go for a Rafflesia. You can easily go for an L set, an L plus Doris, L plus Rafflesia, Rafflesia plus Doris, whatever you want. You might even go with supporting sets. Doesn't really matter. I think it just needs to stay alive. Here I'm running a Sundance just because I took it from Kaiser, but there is no real need to go for it. It's not really a basic attack kind of unit. It's more relying on the special move to deal that small amount of damage that it does. And that's more or less it for 002. So we can move on to Alice. Where are you, Alice? Okay, here. And Alice, I would say she's pretty disappointing and underwhelming. She is okay, and she's actually pretty good if you're facing a single unit that heals. So if the enemy only has one healer, like a Blanc, an Evan, a Gustang, some way Anniversary Evo, but I think Anniversary Evo is still more annoying than anything. She will be okay. If the enemy doesn't have an healer, you kind of lose half of the passive. And if the enemy has too many healers, then is a bit unreliable because you have a CD on the like heal block that she has. So it's a bit unreliable, and I think you kind of get countered by that. But yeah, single healer, amazing. Everywhere else, kinda trash. I couldn't really make her work that well as far as I tested, also with a fully invested one that I linked to, I don't remember which unit, but I think Eden, yes, most likely. I always run her with a full resistance set because she has max HP damage. I was trying to rely more on that than the rest of the kit. Probably not the best choice, could be, but I think that, I mean, okay that she gets a conceal every 6 seconds, but it's still not enough from my point of view. This unit is also super trash if you don't have, I don't know what the minimum investment would be actually, but definitely 3 green, she sucks. 3 red, I would argue she sucks. 4 orange, I could say she still sucks, other than on the one healer scenario. At like 5 rainbow and revolution 5, she's kinda meh. She's also held back by the fact that she has a skill that makes her like stuck in place for 3 seconds charging up. This is also a thing I mentioned when we went over the kit, I think after the live stream. And I said that I didn't like that charge up skill. And this also brings some anti synergies with Revolution 5 Albelda that I don't really like to see. But yeah, at the very least, she's not relying on Albelda to do good. She's still relying on other units. I couldn't make a really good team without using Anniversariwa and Garam overall. So I don't know. I'm not liking this unit that much. I wouldn't recommend people to really go for her. I will still try her, and if I find out any particularly good compositions or use cases, I will let you know. But so far, she's underwhelming compared to what people were expecting. She's just average, or even below average. And yeah, this is more or less my opinion on this unit so far. We can have a quick look at the skills, equipment, and revolution as well. And then I'm going to talk about the collab and whether you should pull for the units or not. Now, for the passive, she has the conceal I was talking about before. She conceals herself at the start of the battle for 2 seconds, and then again every 6 seconds for 2 seconds. And this, it seems like, is not going to be like the cooldown doesn't start when the conceal starts, but when it ends. So we're going to increase it, as we can see here, with the Revolution 4 to 4-second conceal, but it's still 4-second conceal, 6 seconds that you can be hit, 4-second conceal, 6 seconds that you can be hit. So it's kind of trash a bit and is not really too reliable. She has guaranteed crits when concealed from the exclusive equipment, but that's not enough. I feel like if you invest too much on crit rate, it's kind of a waste. But at the same time, if you don't, then you're not going to deal as much damage. So it's a bit awkward. If you decide to go for 100% conceal, even, sorry, 100% crit rate, like base, then that's probably too much because you're not going to have any advantage from the exclusive equipment. Could still be preferable, probably, I don't know. But yeah, definitely a weird interaction that they built here. Obviously, if you decide to go and build Abgrund, you would have 100% crit rate always. But it's, I don't know, I wouldn't recommend that set probably. And okay, the second part of the kit is that she's always going to target the enemy that's furthest away, and her attack ignore other enemies in their path. Okay, fine. So she has a unique targeting. I will say it's a bit annoying because there are a lot of enemies that reposition themselves during the fight. So you might start attacking one, then you attack another, then you attack, then back to attacking the original one, then back to attacking another. It's a bit annoying at times, but it's still a quite acceptable targeting, I will say. So not too bad. And then we have the last part that you kind of skip if the enemy doesn't have a dealer. and that is whenever an enemy uses a special move or active skill which heals another enemy, Alice is going to throw a flashbang at the enemy. You use the skill to stun them for 3 seconds with a 4-second cooldown. If there is only one healer, this is amazing. If there are more than one, it's kind of trash. And if the unit has immunity to status effects while casting that heal, then they would also dodge this stun and be able to cast the skill normally. So really good. And for now, I think it's probably one of the only reasons this unit could see some play here and there. Without this, she's really below average. Then we have the Revolution 4 upgrade, and that is whenever you cast this this part here, the flashbang, so the stun on the healer, you're going to get a 200% attack buff for 10 seconds. This makes her even more so of a niche unit to counter healers, because without an healer in the enemy team, you lose out on this buff. It's a bit annoying, I would say, but it's fine. I mean, they gave her a niche kind of thing. And then the conceal is increased to 4 seconds that I mentioned at the beginning. So yeah, pretty good passive, all things considered, but again, not too insane. Then we have the first active skill, and this is the annoying one, precise shot. She's going to aim for 3 seconds, always on the enemy that's furthest away. That's fine. Dealing a certain percentage of her attack is damage, and then there is a charge up for 3 seconds. The total amount, if she charges for 3 seconds, is 1800. Not a bad percentage to have, but we don't really care too much about the attack scaling. We care more about the max HP scaling that we can see here. If the shot is a crit hit, she's going to deal 30% max HP as damage. That is only capped to attack if the enemy is a boss. And she's going to shoot immediately if she's hit by a status effect while aiming. And if the target she's aiming at dies, in the meantime, she will shoot immediately at the enemy that's farthest away. That's kind of trash only for this charge up time. These 3 seconds make this active skill really, really annoying. You waste a lot of time just aiming, and you're not protected while doing so. Like, you don't have invincibility, you can easily die. The enemy can easily heal up a little bit or regen HP based on which kind of enemies you're facing. I don't really like that. The other active skill on the other end is a bit better. Elimination, she's going to increase her own crit damage by 80% for 12 seconds, and then immediately shoot at the enemy that's furthest away. And if the shot is a crit hit, she's going to deal 20% max HP of the enemy as additional damage. Not bad. Is lower than the others, but at least this one is instantaneous and also comes with a self buff. Then we have the special move. This one is also okay. She's going to throw a grenade to the farthest enemy, blinding them for 5 seconds and decreasing their evasion by 80% for 5 seconds. This is again mainly useful against the Bull and Zahard right now, but there might be more enemies in the future that could be annoying. Then she's going to snipe for 1200% attack as damage, not too insane as a percentage. And if the shot is a crit hit, you're going to deal a 30% max HP as additional damage. This is super low, like 30% on the special move is pretty trash because we know that Adan has 60%, but obviously she's going to get Revolution 5 that will increase this up to the 60% that also Adan has. I would say she doesn't have Pierce in her kit. She doesn't have Resistance Shred, which is a bit disappointing. She only has a crit damage increase, which is still something, but not what I would like to see, I will say. So yeah, she has to rely on her team to be decreasing the enemy resistances if you want those percentage damage to deal a reasonable amount of damage. And yeah, this is more or less her whole kit. Now we can just have a quick look at the exclusive equipment. And we can see here what I mentioned at the beginning, whenever she's concealed, her attacks are guaranteed to be crit hits. And the cooldown of the skill called Elimination is reset when you're assisting with defeating an enemy using Precise Shot. Precise Shot is the 3-second charge up skill, and Elimination is the other one that self-buffs with the 80% crit damage. Was it 80%? Okay, whatever, that amount of crit damage. Then we have, for level 3, a Conceal for 5 seconds whenever her HP drops below 50%, only once per battle. It's okay, not the best of things, but it's okay. Then we have level 4, which is actually a pretty reasonable buff, and that is a 30% attack increase for every second that she's concealed, up to 10 stacks. So like after 20 seconds in the battle, if you have Revolution 4, she's a 300% attack increase. These can be removed by buffs, obviously. So Anniversary, Iwa, Garam, or Urek are pretty annoying to deal with, but that's okay. And yeah, that's more or less it for this equipment. She gets the crit damage increase here as an additional stat. It's okay since you want her to crit. Probably for ease of building, crit rate could have been a bit better, but it doesn't really change much. It's okay, still fine. In terms of set, I'm just giving her at the moment 2 Doris to L. That is the same set that I use on my add-on, and it has slot 4 magic resistance and slot 5 physical resistance. The rest of the stats are pretty trash, but okay. What would I recommend? I'm not sure. It's probably either L, even though you don't really care too much about the extra attack, or at this point you might as well go with Upgrund, but it's really weird, just because there is no real set that will benefit her that much. I didn't check, but I don't think extra swiftness will decrease the charge up time. That is more or less static. Like for example, the time that regular Yuri stays in that provoke is 5 seconds regardless of your swiftness, and this is a 3-second charge up regardless of your swiftness. So she doesn't really benefit from anything. You can basically give her whatever you want. The important thing is more like the team building part than anything. And yeah, that's more or less my first impression on this unit. Things might change, and if that will happen, I will make sure to let you know some way or another, either by making a post on YouTube if I will already be on vacation, or a post on my Discord. Some way or another, I will let you know. Now, in terms of the banner, let me just open it because right now, as you already saw, we have both Eugene and Alice banners. They did a weird thing because 003 is probably the best support for Alice, but it's in Eugene's banner, and 002 is a really good support for Eugene, and he is in Alice's banner. So it's kind of tricky. If you want to go for one of the two SSR units, you will get the SSR Plus that doesn't really work that well with them, which is weird. I will mention first, I will say the SSR units. They are both pretty good. At the very least, 002 is not restricted to red alone. You can use him with like any color that you want, as long as the like damage dealer relies on crits and can also be played in the front line. He will do well, and if you have even at through red, and if you have a what was that, Revolution 5? Yes, Revolution 5 002, then it will also buff even more the physical damage dealers that rely on crits, which for now I would say Jinsung and Ijin are the best ones, probably. There might be more, but whatever. So he's a good unit. It doesn't need to be Revolution 5 necessarily. The 80% crit damage buff is already quite good. You need to keep him alive, so I'd recommend going for resistances, but he's a nice pick overall. Is he needed? No, not really. I don't feel like there is a scenario where you say, oh, I wish I had 002 to play in this team. Is not really an important unit from my point of view. 003 on the other end is a really good buffer, is a bit more niche, but I think she can have some more use in the future. Unfortunately, she's kind of restricted to the red element alone. She has specific buffs for red. There are some things that work for every element, but you lose out on too many buffs if you don't have a red element DPS unit. So it's a bit less versatile, and as of right now, she works best, I will say, with Jin Sung and Alice. That's more or less all. Should you go for her and get a lot of copies of her? I don't think it's too important, to be honest. She's a really good unit. She's too squishy if you don't have her at like high investment. Before Rainbow 5, mine really was exploding for no reason. After Rainbow 5, she could cast the special move earlier, and whenever she's in the special move, she will be invincible, like Kun Mashini, the data version, that she cannot go below 1 HP, and 003 is the same while she's in the special move. So a lot of survivability comes from that, and after Rainbow 5, I found that she was surviving just okay. That's my point of view. Is she necessary as of right now? Not really. If in the future we will get more single target red DPSs, she might shine a bit more. For now, not too important. If you don't have the resources, I wouldn't bother. Then for the SSR Plus units, I already mentioned in this video Alice. I don't really like her playstyle that much. It's a shame because max HP damage is always nice, but she is like too niche of a unit. If you're facing one healer, amazing DPS, and she's fire. But any other combination, two healers or more, or zero healers, will really like will really damage her kit overall and her performance. So I don't really recommend her as a unit right now. Eugene, on the other hand, is a okay tank at 3 red already. He has good evasion, so he's an okay unit. If you have Orange 4 and he's Revolution 4, he will have guaranteed crits pretty much on a bleeding enemy, and he applies a lot of bleed, so that's fine. He's a also good damage dealer. I have more success with him than with Evankel, for example, because this guy can actually tank pretty hard, while Evankel just dies in this mine. And you can go with 100% resistance in both stats for Eugene, which is really good for survivability. He has a lot of evasion, so even if the enemy uh, could potentially kill him in like 2, 3, 4 shots, you can dodge most hits, so it's still good. I like him personally, but I think that if you really want him to carry hard, you need to build a team around him. He's mostly mono red team. You cannot really go with units of a different element, otherwise you lose out on the stacks from the passive that will give him like damage taken reduction or pierce increase. Albelda is a really good unit with him if you can spare one. If you cannot, then he's going to deal a lot less damage. That's the case with obviously a lot of different units. Albelda is a super strong buffer. If you use him with her, then you don't have to worry about any kind of, well, not any kind of deficit, but we saw people clearing 320, 350 plus with Aegean plus Albelda. And I think someone also shared a clear of a 300 deficit of Aegean without Albelda. So his damage potential is there, his survivability is really good. So he's a solid unit. Is he a must-have? For adventure, I don't think so. You don't really miss him that much. You can use any other frontline unit and just rely on the usual DPS units that we have in the game, like Viol, Evankel, or Jinsung. So if you are short on resources, you have around, like, let's say, maybe you have 150,000 Suspendium, and you are yet to pull in both banners, I probably wouldn't bother, because with that amount of Suspendium, you can kind of guarantee one of them to Rainbow 5, but then you leave yourself without resources for the new units that we're going to get soon and also the Alpha anniversary. So it's not something I would recommend. I would say if you have 300k, you could think about it, but it's still risky. I wouldn't go for the collab unless you have 400k plus. We're already getting one free copy of all the units and also quite a good number of pools. So you can try your best to get some of them as close as you can to 3 red, and then maybe get the remaining dupes with the in the future by using Suspendium on the events and getting the SSR plus shards. That's more or less my feeling on this collab. I feel like all these units are usable. None of them are exceptional or must-haves. So if you don't have enough resources, I wouldn't bother and just skip them. That's my feeling. Let me know if you have any questions. I will try to reply in the comments down below. But for now, that's pretty much all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.